Hey everyone, for today's video, I'll be talking about the new Halloween units that are going to be coming to JP. There's going to be 3 of them, including Forte, Valerie, and Charlotte, but I'll go through them and give a couple of thoughts along the way. Starting with Halloween Forte, she's a dark human, and her slots are 6-star support, 5-star defense, and 4-star heal and support. Very solid slots overall, since she can give support and damage resist. For her skill, she gives herself 6 arts a second for 7 seconds with a 13-second CT. 42 arts every 13 seconds isn't terrible, about 3 a second, pretty nice for self-sustain. For her arts, it does 16,000 dark damage magic, and for 20 seconds, she increases all allies' attack and equip CT by 40%. Pretty solid art for sure. If she's not going to be ran with War God Fen or Star God Lisa, her equip CT is going to be great for the team. The attack is okay, I guess. It could be higher, but it's better than nothing. For her true art, it does 43,000 dark damage magic. For 18 seconds, she increases everyone arts by 4 a second and lowers the enemy's dark resist by 100%. And it's type B art gen. 72 arts for a type B art gener isn't really that much, to be honest. It's fairly on the lower side, although the dark resist debuff is very strong. She'll definitely have to be ran with another art gener to keep the team running though. For her super arts, it does 120,000 dark damage magic, and for 15 seconds, she increases all dark allies damage and break power by 200%. This is a pretty interesting one. The damage up for dark allies is insane, as is the break power, but I feel it being exclusive to dark units hurts it a bit, at least the break power anyways. But seeing how she wants to be on a dark team, it doesn't matter too much, but that damage is going to be insane. The duration could have been slightly longer though. The break power is insane on harder stages that might need to break though. For her passives, she increases all allies damage by 30% per unique race, up to 120%. She has 60% curse and seal resist too. That's a fairly insane passive. If you think about it, AoE damage up for free is wild. But from this, you're most likely only really going to benefit either 60 to 90% from this at max. Because generally speaking, the only usable races are gods, demons, and humans. Trying to use another race would be more of a detriment to the team than that 30% damage you'd be missing out on. So you're better off on like 2 humans, a demon, and a god. And even for a dark team, it's fairly hard to find a dark god, so you can probably even just run 3 humans and only benefit from 60% damage up. It's not bad, it's just not as good as it could be though. But overall, she seems to be a pretty fun unit. She's an art gener that provides equip CT while debuffing and damage buffing. She's of course going to shine in a mono dark team, so that's where she'll function the best. Maybe with someone like Ainz or Demon Lord Rimuru. And then for gods, there aren't very many good dark gods, so I'm not really sure to be honest. Her passive falls off heavily, considering the restraints are pretty hard to match, and you either use a dark unit or another race that isn't dark, but they wouldn't benefit from the dark buffs and debuffs solely for that AoE damage that you'd be getting in return. But I'm sure she has her place on a very specific comp, and on that comp she's gonna shine a lot considering how much she's helping dark units. Moving on to Halloween Charlotte, she's a fire human and her slots are 6-star physical, 5-star physical, and 4-star defense and heal. Her slots are okay at best. The defense slot is okay, but I'm not sure I'd use Expert LBs for LB 6 or 7. For her skill, she increases her arts by 30 or 60 if it crits with a 10-second CT. 6 arts a second at best, 3 at the worst. For her arts, it does 23,000 fire damage physical, and for 35 seconds, she increases her crit damage by 150%. This is an insane buff, 150% damage that lasts for a fairly long time, albeit it's crit damage, so she does have to crit to benefit from it. And that's a bit harder to achieve on harder stages. It's still great nevertheless. For her true art, she does 70,000 fire damage physical, she has a 100% chance to bleed, and then she increases the bleed stack by 1 if they're bleeding. It's always nice to see a unit that bleeds. It is unfortunate it's the true art, since if you're not using a bleed equip, it'll take 600 arts to fully stack the bleeds. For her super art, it does 185,000 fire damage physical, and for 20 seconds, she reduces the enemy's physical resist by 100%, and then an additional 50% physical resist down per stack of bleed on the enemy, so up to 250% physical resist down. This is actually an insane super art. It has a crazy high multiplier, and the debuff potential is insane. Compared to someone like Yuzuria that has a debuff conditional on her health, this is basically a free debuff that just needs stacks of bleed to work, and if you're able to max her stacks of bleed in game, you're going to have that consistent 250% physical resist down, which is insane for a DPS unit. This is going to be really busted on just about any physical team. For her passive, she gets 100% crit rate when enemies have a stack of bleed, she gets 100% accuracy against enemies with 3 stacks of bleed, and then 80% freeze resist. The crit rate is very good obviously. The accuracy is interesting, although it's nice if you want to run her on the higher evasion stages. But overall, she's shaping to be a fairly formidable DPS. She gives herself 150% crit damage, and then she has a crazy 250% physical resist debuff, as well as a 185,000 damage modifier on her super art. If you're able to make her crit, she's going to wipe out nearly everything in her way, but the hard part is getting her to crit. And while her damage is good, she does need some more buffing, because while her debuff is insane and crit damage is strong, she needs a lot more damage buffing support. So someone like Valentine's Priscilla or Senki would make Charlotte eat pretty good. And at the end of the day, she is just a DPS, so it's not like she'll be worth chasing, but she's fairly nice to have, especially on established fire teams. For the last unit, it's Halloween Valerie. She's a water human and her slots are 6-star magic, 5-star magic, and 4-star magic and defense. They're not the best slots, especially the 4-star magic. The 4-star defense on LB7 is good, but it's not at all worth the expert LB stones. For her skill, it gives her 30 arts, or 50 if she doesn't have status ailment, with an 11-second CT. So at best, she's getting around 4.5 arts a second, and at worst, around 2.7 arts a second. Nothing insane, but it's nice to have. For her arts, it does 22,000 water damage magic, and for 25 seconds, she increases her own attack by 120%. It's a pretty insane buff. Not many units buff their attack, so mixing this with strong damage buffing will make her hit some pretty good numbers, I'm sure. For her true art, she does 60,000 water damage magic, and for 45 seconds, she reduces the enemy's magic resist by a stackable 70%. This is actually insane since just 3 of these stacks equal out to a 210% magic resist debuff, and on magic teams, it's gonna go absolutely insane. It's pretty similar to the levels of Halloween Charlotte's super art. For her super art, she does 165,000 water damage magic, and for 20 seconds she increases her damage by 200% and ignores the enemy's defense by 100%. And when it's used the first time, she resets the cooldown of her magic equips. This is a pretty good super art as well. It's 200% free damage as well as defense ignore, which is pretty good since it's very hard to crit on the harder stages in the game. The equip refresh is interesting, but it's definitely welcome. As for her abilities, she increases all allies' damage resist with how high her own HP is, with a max of 30% damage resist, as well as 1% damage up per 100 attack she has, and 80% paralysis resist. She has some pretty insane passives. The AoE damage resist is insane, and with how it's worded, it seems to stack with all other kinds of AoE damage resist passives, which will be insane in hard quests since it's a free defense equip active at all times. The 1% damage per 100 attack is interesting as well, and paired with her art buffing her attack, it'll be interesting to see. If we add her base attack with Tasmans and each equip slot, she comes out to 5,810 attack, and with a level 4 attack crest, that becomes 6,560 base attack without any buffs. That means she'll get 65% damage for free, and if you use her art, her attack is increased to 14,432, which means she'll have a passive 144% damage buff for literally nothing. It's a pretty insane passive as you can see, and pairing her with other units that might increase stats or equips to increase her attack, she'll be even more insane. But overall, she seems to be pretty similar to Halloween Charlotte. I'd say she's slightly better in terms of damage with her defense ignore, which is a lot more useful on harder stages, as well as having a lot more damage, around 344% damage after her art and super art, which is gonna melt. All she needs is good art gen and she'll be a pretty good addition to a water magic team. Running her with someone like Summer Juno would make stages laughably easy. Running her with someone like Summer Juno is going to make her damage laughably high. And on top of doing so much damage, she has passive damage resist for the team. She's a great unit overall, and she seems pretty fun to use. But as for all the units, overall, I think the best is probably going to be Halloween Forte. She provides so much to the team, including art gen, equip CT, dark debuffing and damage buffing, and more. She'll be fun, she just needs to find the right team. The second best I would say has to be Halloween Valerie. Her slots aren't the best, but she makes up for it with her insane self-damage buffing, defense ignore, magic resist debuffing, and if her doing insane levels of damage wasn't enough, she also has a passive 30% damage resist to the team, so she has that bit of survivability to not be completely selfish. She just needs a lot of art gen to utilize her true art debuffs and then benefit from her art attack and passive damage buff, and then using her super art to damage. The final unit is of course Halloween Charlotte. I'm not saying she's bad, she's just not up to par with the others. The 250% physical resist debuff is very strong of course, but it is dependent on bleeds, and she needs the true art to get it off. And with how the hard stages are these days, there are going to be multiple hard stages in one game, which means she'll need to restart her bleed stacks repeatedly. but when she does max it, her super art debuff is going to be devastating. Even more so if she's going to be able to crit, which is fairly hard on hard stages, but on the right teams, she's going to put out some insane numbers. Someone like Valentine's Priscilla is going to work wonders with Charlotte. That's it for the video though. Let me know your thoughts about the units down below or who you'd want to get. Thankfully, none of these units are pity worthy, so we don't need to worry about another unit to chase. But if you're on JP, let me know if you're going to summon for them when they drop on the 16th. If you did enjoy the video, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Good luck to anyone that's going to summon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.